I've got a friend and our kids are, they're only a year apart, and she loves the smell of like newborn poo.
What?
No, it's I actually said this before. I don't know if I like the smell of other babies' poos, but my baby's poo smells like roses. Welcome to the new podcast for brand new parents from Tommee Tippee. I'm Jilly Isabella, a new mum who's in the thick of it just like you. Each week I'm joined by a guest star and a parenting professional, and together we're going to share real stories and expert advice to help you navigate pregnancy, the newborn days and early parenthood. Let's share the highs, the lows, everything in between, no fluff, just zero judgment and real talk. You've got this and we've got you. Today we're joined on this episode with Audrey. Thank you so much for coming. You are podcast host and mum to Anaya.
Yes.
And it was her birthday yesterday.
It was, yeah.
Oh, happy birthday, Anaya.
Thank you. She says from afar.
Oh, that's so cute. And we've got Midwife Lily. She's here to keep us sane. You're going to reassure us. How long have you been a midwife for?
Oh my goodness, 11 years now.
Wow. Okay, so you are equipped to help us
I think
on
so.
this episode.
Yes.
Let's get straight into it. There is so much in pregnancy and labour that they just don't tell you about, and you don't really realise it until you're going through it. Was there anything that you experienced, Audrey, that you were like, whoa, no one told me about this?
Yeah, everything.
All of it.
Absolutely all of it. I've been pretty vocal about, my pregnancy experience. It wasn't necessarily the best. So yeah, there were so many things that I went through. I mean, I knew about morning sickness, but I didn't know that it was all day sickness. And then I didn't know.
I would love a rebrand of that. Like,
Exactly.
I'm putting it out there.
Agreed.
Whoever's on the dictionary, we are not morning sickness. It's all day sickness.
Literally.
24-hour sickness, that's what we should call it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so you experienced that through your pregnancy. You were quite ill. You had a tough time.
Yeah, I had it quite bad. I had HG, which stands for...
Hyperemesis gravidarum.
Thank you, because I can never say that word.
We can call it HG.
Yeah, HG. And so, yes, I was sick pretty much from 6 weeks up until the day I gave birth, and I was vomiting the whole time. Yeah, so it was pretty rough. Yeah.
That's the first time I've ever heard of HG. Is that quite common, Lily?
It's not. So I think, like you said, morning sickness is not morning sickness. It's all day, all night sickness. HG is really rare, about 3% of people, which I feel like that's super unlucky to get that, along with other things. But that is like debilitating. It's grim. It makes you so poorly. And it's when you can't eat, you can't drink.
Okay.
Often you get hospitalised as well. So it's very different from morning sickness that we call morning sickness, where that often will subside at some point. Some medicine will help. Eating, things like ginger, hyperemesis, there's not really much you can do except the strong drugs.
Just, drugs and grind it out. So I reckon then, Audrey, you were keen for pregnancy to be over and to meet your wee girl.
Yes, very much so. So much so that I wasn't even nervous about labour. I was like, let's get to it. Like,
I'm hyped. I'm ready for this to be done.
Like, literally, when I started having contractions, I was like, okay, like, it's happening. Yeah. And I was in so much pain. I was convinced I was like 9 centimetres dilated. And then I got to the hospital and they were like, you're 0.5. And I was like, oh. And I was like quite embarrassed. I was making such a scene. Yeah. And she was like, no, you've got a little bit of way to go. So, go home and just relax and come back. But then last minute, I got diagnosed with preeclampsia. So then I ended up being admitted straight away. But I was, aside from that, I was excited to give birth. I just wanted the pregnancy over and done with.
For those listening that don't know what preeclampsia is, Lily, can you shine some light on that?
Of course, yeah. So similar to how we spoke about HG and sickness, you can have high blood pressure, but you don't necessarily have preeclampsia. So preeclampsia is when you have protein in your wee, which your midwife would tell you about. You then would have raised blood pressure and often have the symptoms like the severe swelling, visual disturbances. Sometimes you can get this awful pain under your rib cage. It's not your baby kicking. So often if you read into things and you ask the questions, we can get you diagnosed. Often blood tests need to confirm preeclampsia, and a lot of the time you need medicine to stop your blood pressure from getting so high. So with your preeclampsia in labour, there's not much you can do apart from get your baby out, and often getting your baby out does resolve preeclampsia.
So it's good to know that once the baby's out, preeclampsia goes.
Yeah, hormones settle. Pretty much most problems are solved by birthing your baby.
And how was the birth?
I'd say compared to the pregnancy, it was smooth. I took the epidural. I needed it. That helped massively. That just helped relax me. I was there for, I think I was in labour for about 15 hours all in all before I had her.
Physical things then, what were some physical things that you didn't expect? For example, like you maybe thought your waters broke, but they never. Was there anything else that you experienced that was like that?
With the preeclampsia, I got really, really, really swollen hands and feet. Like literally, I looked like some sort of monster. It was huge. And I just thought it was a pregnancy symptom. I just thought it was something that came with labour. And so when I got to the hospital, so I remember I'd sent pictures of my feet and hands to my mum, like, haha, this is so funny. Like, look at my hands. Like, and she was like, girl.
No, babe, that's concerning.
Yeah, she was like, exactly. She was like,
call the doctor.
She was like, this is an issue. She was like, you need to call your midwife. And so I did. And then they just said, it's just early signs of labour, you'll be fine. It's not until I got to the hospital and then my mum sort of advocated for me to be tested, and I came back with a preeclampsia result. So I had no idea about that. I also didn't know that you could still be vomiting during labour, because I had the HG.
Oh, God,
so during labour I was puking up, and they tried to give me gas in it, and that just made me even more sick. So that was pretty,
Audrey,
hardcore.
You went through it.
I did.
And so any physical changes after birth you didn't expect? For example, I never realised that you bleed for like up to like 6 to 8 weeks.
Yep.
And people did say like, you're going to need pads and things. And I was like, why? I was like, did I get my period back right away? But it's not a period bleed, right, Lily? It's...
No, so your post-birth bleed, for most people, happens for about 6 weeks. It does depend on the kind of birth you have. So if you have a C-section, a lot of the time the products from birth are often just suctioned out at the C-section. So then there's less bleeding to happen. But most people do, they experience quite a heavy, with some blood clots. It's really important as well that with the blood clots, they need to be smaller than 50p.
Okay.
Anything bigger than that, you do need to, even, it sounds grim, but I don't mind a photo. I don't mind. Just give me some warning that you're going to send it to me.
Did you experience like any other physical things that just threw you off, like bleeding?
Yeah, my bleeding was quite intense actually, because I tore. So I'd heard about tearing, but I just didn't really know what to expect. So they ended up having to stitch me up. That was really sore. So I feel like
I had that as well. I was really sore.
It was really sore. So I feel like after labour, I felt fine, but it was more the pain from the stitches, and it was really stingy. And then, not to get too grim, but later on those stitches became infected, and I had no idea about any of this stuff, and I just remember feeling really uncomfortable and really leaky, and so I ended up going to the hospital, and then they told me that they were infected, so they were kind of happy to just give me some antibiotics.
The whole toilet situation was a thing in itself.
Oh my God.
I toured as well. So TMI, I can't believe I'm saying this on the internet, the first poo.
Oh my God.
After, I thought pelvic floor doesn't exist down there. Like, I'm never going to be able to squeeze a poo out again. So this is just my life. Like, I just don't poo anymore. Like, that's not a thing. With the whole pooing situation, because there is obviously a stigma around that ladies don't poo, but of course we do. Is there anything we can do like to approach that can make things a little bit easier?
Right, so I have never in my 11 years of being a midwife heard about someone breaking their stitches from having a big poo. So I can confidently say you are not going to tear your stitches apart by opening your bowels, but pushing, straining will put pressure on stitches that are designed to dissolve. So what I would say is take a stool softener. If you haven't pooed for a few days, it's worth asking your GP, asking your midwife for some potentially breastfeeding friendly stool softeners. I would hold a little pad on my stitches just so that I can feel that external pressure. Like I said, they're not going to break, but I think you think that they probably will. And that anxiety, our bowels pick up on anxiety. When you're like on holiday, again, TMI, but when we're on holiday, I can't go to the toilet. If I'm not in my own house, I find it really uncomfortable. So we know the fear's coming, and that will stop you. That will cause constipation, stress, and you have just birthed a baby. You do not want to be birthing something else on the toilet.
No,
take it slow.
There's a lot going on down there. That's great advice.
Molly May and I had babies not too far apart, so I'd watched a lot of her like vlogs and stuff, and she talked about the first poo and saying it was like worse than child labour. And so I was so scared, and I really was paranoid because I had the dissolvable stitches, and so I think that was part of it. Like part of my anxiety was that this is just going to tear through my stitches. And I just remember being like, today's the day I have to go. Luckily for me, my hospital gave me like a care package when I left, so I had stool softener in my care package. So I remember I'd like backed this lactulose, and I was like, okay, I feel ready. And then there was just so much straining going on. Sorry guys, this is TMI, but there was so much straining. There was tears. I was literally so stressed. And then I heard my baby cry. And then I was like, 1, 2, 3, go. And I went and it happened. And it was like,
thank you, babe.
I was so happy. I just had to go and tend to her, you know, so I just had to get on with it and bite the bullet, and it happened.
Yeah, do you know what? It's so good. Yeah, no, thanks, babes. It's so good to take the stigma out of it though, because this is the stuff that they don't tell you about.
Absolutely.
And it can be so embarrassing and it can be quite isolating to be like, wait, why can I not go there? But it's so common.
Yeah, exactly.
So normal. A lot of people say to me as a midwife, I'm sorry if this is TMI, or I'm sorry if you don't want to see this. And I'm like, babes, this is literally my job. Tell me everything, share everything with me, and that helps me look after you better.
Yeah, that's why your midwife's there.
Exactly. So yeah, it's never too much.
This is girlhood.
Exactly.
So just to touch on stitching as well, a lot of the time you can't avoid stitches and it's quite inevitable. For that post like care after, is there any tips and like what we can do to like look after our stitches? They do eventually dissolve anyway. Yeah. So we do have that to look forward to.
They do. And I feel like people are going to hate me, but first time mums, you're probably going to have a tear. And I think if we talk about how common that is and how normal to an extent that is, it might then just make you do your birth prep. So have you seen that thing where you can massage, if you imagine that's your bottom hole, vagina hole, and this flap of skin is your perineum, that massage there is so vital. I know it's hard with your bump in the way, and it's not the sexiest thing to ask your partner to also help you, but it is their job. Massaging that perineum, studies have shown it will just give you a little bit more space. You know, episiotomies, when we do a cut, which is only ever with consent and only ever if it's needed, that could be avoided if that skin had been stretched a little. I think, if I'm honest, the reason for tearing for first-time mums is probably because of lack of control, feeling like you haven't got the power, you haven't got the control there, and potentially feeling rushed or being rushed by people to push your child out when you can't rush something like that. Your baby is supposed to creep out, suck back in, creep out. Did you ever feel that?
That happened, yeah.
And
and I was like, I actually said to the midwife, I was like, pull it out for me. I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. You pull it out. And the midwife was like, I can't do that. Like, this is all on you.
It is, but that stretch is normal. They're supposed to sit there for a little bit, and when they do eventually come out, it should be a creep rather than a hello mum.
I did the perineum massaging with a tool. It was very 50 Shades. So I never tore on that part, but I tore at the top. So you can do all the prep, but it is probably pretty inevitable. So just going into labour and knowing to expect that.
Yeah, and being in control of your pushing. So I don't really feel like there's ever a need where I would say, push now for this long and this many seconds. Just do what feels right for you.
Yeah, trust your body.
After the birth, we talked about the first poo, the first wee, that can be so stingy.
That first pee, oh my God, I was like, I didn't want to sit on the toilet either because I just felt like there was just so much going on. So then I was like squatting over it, and I was just like squatting for like 5 minutes. And I was like, wow, like first of all, not been to the gym in a very long time, so I actually can't squat. Second of all, will this pee ever come? And I was like, this is agony. This is more really painful than the labour.
So sit forward when you do wee. Try and sit forward so that your wee doesn't touch your perineum. Your perineum, so some people have urethral tears, clitoral tears, like that's so sore and so stingy right by your pee hole. But your perineum is near your bottom, so if you sit forward, your wee can direct down there. Pour water down yourself, you know, like a bottle that you can squeeze, or just have a jug. I always know a new mum when I go and have a wee and she's got a jug, a gravy jug right next to her toilet, but that's what you need to do too. And then having like icicle pads, so freeze your pads, sit on a cold pad. There are lots of products that you can put on there, but your body is designed to heal. Stitches, the actual stitch will just make it heal faster, but you probably would heal anyway, because I have women that say no to stitching and their body just does it. So keeping them dry, keeping them clean. If you can have no nick of time, have no nick of time, which is why you say no to visitors.
Yeah, so you can have like a lot of like internal things going on, but then you also experience like hair thinning and like your hair coming out in clumps. Did you experience any of that, Audrey?
I remember that day, and I remember feeling so smug because everyone used to talk about postpartum hair loss and blah blah blah, and then like I felt like I was thriving and surviving. I thought I was doing great until one day I woke up, and I'm not even going to lie to you, my edges were literally on the pillow, and I woke up and I was completely bald at the front, like completely bald. And I remember I called like my hairdresser doctor and I was like, you've got to get me in. Like, we need to do something.
It's an emergency appointment.
Yeah, this is an emergency. Like, what are we doing about the situation? She's really good because she deals with all like my natural hair stuff, and so she came up with some potions and stuff like that. And I mean, it did grow back eventually, so I do want to say it does grow back.
Yeah. Okay,
and it grew back did grow back pretty quickly for me, but I had no idea that was really a thing. I thought it was like an urban legend.
Yeah.
Well, they usually say it's like a 4-month mark, so I'm just coming up for that. So Audrey, I feel like you're like, I feel as if I'm thriving, like I've never had nicer hair in my entire life. And I'm like, oh my god, these luscious locks. And I'm like, is that coming? Like, impending doom is coming up. Is there a reason that it is that it's at a 4-month mark? Is it something to do with like your hormones kind of going back to normal, so to speak?
So when you're pregnant, you get so many hormones overflow, and a lot of that is estrogen, and that makes your hair thick. It also stops you from losing hair. So it maybe isn't that our hair is falling out, but that we've just kept hold of it in pregnancy. So we've got this beautiful, gorgeous full head of hair, and then suddenly it starts to thin, and that is because of the estrogen drop, which is inevitable.
It is all just so sexy and glamorous, isn't it? Touching on intimacy and, you know, like when we go back to having sex again after they say it's like 6 weeks, that for me seems so soon. I was like, never again. I was in the hospital and they were like, so what contraceptive are you using? And I was like, oh, see what I just went through.
Yeah, exactly.
And like childbirth, that's my contraceptive. You don't need to worry about me, babe.
You say that, but often people are. So I have loads of women that will give birth and then become pregnant in a few weeks' time, a few months' time. You can get pregnant from 3 weeks post-birth.
You're super fertile after birth, aren't you?
Because you haven't ovulated for 9 months. You know, you've not had your period. As soon as your period comes back, which can be very different for different people, breastfeeding we know can delay a period, therefore delay fertility returning probably, but it isn't a contraceptive. That is really a take-home point today, guys. It's not a contraceptive for everybody, and that 6 weeks is the earliest we'd recommend, but that does not mean that you have to have sex at 6 weeks. Some people wait years if they want to. It just depends on how you feel.
It is daunting, and it's like you said, it is just a recommendation. Did you feel like you were going with that recommendation? Did you feel like it was a daunting experience?
No, I happily went with that recommendation because that was the last thing on my mind. However, shout out to the mums that want to get it in so soon. Like, I love that. I love that for you. Like,
I love that for
you know,
your
there's
libido.
no judgment either way. Like, if you feel good and ready and, you know, the baby's asleep and you've got the time, amazing. For me, I wasn't there yet. You know, we found other ways to be intimate because you obviously do want to make sure that your relationship is still thriving and you're doing okay and your husband doesn't feel like a spare part or what have you. But like at that time for me, it was just about navigating motherhood and just finding my feet. This was my first pregnancy, and luckily like my husband was really supportive of that, and we were both too tired to even think about it.
Exhaustion.
Like, exactly.
Like, that's exerting a lot of energy. You think, and when I've just got this baby down and I'm in bed, that I'm going to kiss you. No, I'm going to sleep right now, babes.
That was our sex. Like napping together was like
that was the
time.
Intimacy. That's so sexy. Us spooning in bed.
Exactly. Like in a couple of hours, like let's go.
Lily, how would you give any advice then to couples that are going to approach that? Like Audrey mentioned, like you don't want your relationship to suffer as well, but with going through labour, it is such a life-changing moment. It can be traumatic for some people, so it can be a daunting experience.
Intimacy can come as a hug, or do my porridge in the morning, get the baby's bottle ready, or get me a snack while I'm breastfeeding. That to me is better than sex.
There is no foreplay like acts of service.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people...
The sexiest thing you can do for me right now is wash those bottles.
Exactly.
I don't want that work. So we've reached our Ask an Expert segment. So Lily, this is all on you. We've got a listener that's submitted a voice note, Ellie from London, and she wants to ask about inductions.
Hi guys, I'm pregnant with my first baby and due in about 5 weeks. One thing I'd like to know a bit more about is the induction process. I keep hearing horror stories about induction of birth and people end up having to have emergency C-sections anyway. And I wondered how statistically true that is, that if you are induced, you're more likely to end up needing the C-section after all. Thanks very much.
So I think with labour, potentially pregnancy time is running out. You feel a lot of pressure to be induced. It doesn't take much of a Google to find out your stats of, you know, what happens if you don't get induced. So there's a lot of pressure. Induction is intervention, one of the highest forms, and intervention is linked with potentially needing a C-section. To reassure Ellie, C-section isn't directly linked to induction. Because of an induction, it's long. You're in hospital from the get-go. You haven't got this before and after going home for a little bit, and then potentially more likely to have some pain relief, like an epidural, potentially having more monitoring. So I always think if we go looking for a problem, we're going to find a problem. The intervention causes the C-section. The long labour causes the C-section, or forcing your body into labour when it was not ready means we have that awful term, failure to progress, which I hate. It's so icky because it's not a failure on your behalf. It's just our hoops that you haven't jumped through, and that's why we name it as that term, which actually rationally nobody's going to behave the same as each other. So often it's the need for C-section is because of something wrong with you and your baby. Not saying that's caused by your induction, but potentially more likely to enter a problem when you've been in labour for more time than naturally intended.
I remember when I was going for like my later midwife appointments, and I was at like the 37, 38 weeks, and they started talking about induction, and I remember in my head being like, I really didn't want any intervention. I kind of wanted to go spontaneously, but there almost kind of felt like that pressure when we were speaking like 2 weeks before I was full term. We were already talking about that. So what can induction look like? I know with intervention, induction is basically the bringing on labour, but there's lots of different ways that you can be induced.
Yeah, so a lot of people don't know this, but actually a sweep is an induction. People will say to me, can you do a sweep from 37 weeks, 38 weeks? And actually the risks of that might mean that if something happens during that sweep, like I accidentally break your waters, which is never intended, that does cut your pregnancy short. So actually the need for induction is going to be a lot higher now. Sweeps are inductions, but probably the lowest form. You can try and get yourself into labour by sex, eating the 6 dates a day if you can stomach it, if you can, all those kind of things. But when we come to medical induction, it starts off with different hospitals do different things, but a little tampon applicator that goes inside your vagina to sit behind your cervix. Other hospitals will use little rods that physically open your cervix. There's no drugs, but just like pulls it open. And other places will use some gel that has hormones in it that goes around your cervix. Some people are a little bit too late for that. They don't need it, because anything that we're putting in there, if your cervix is already open 1 or 2 centimetres, you don't need it anyway. And that skips like 6 to 12 hours. So there's no point doing that if your body has done that already. We then ask to break your waters. And a couple of hours after that, if contractions have not started, then you get the oxytocin drip. And that does go through your cannula in your hand. You are then, I wouldn't say you can't move, but it's difficult to. You have to drag this drip with you. And we recommend monitoring as well, because we are pumping your womb full of hormones. We need to watch that that is okay with your baby and with your own body. Sometimes babies just say, not tolerating that today, stop the train, I'm getting off. And that's why we say, potentially you could carry on. Potentially I could help you achieve a vaginal birth, but the cost of that is far worse than just let's get this baby born.
It is such a wild ride, isn't it? And I think the physical things are a lot, but also the emotional side of things take you by surprise.
The emotional side was, it was very intense. Like, I just went into this blinded, like, you know, and I was just, you know, riding the wave as and when it happened. I had no idea about after you give birth, and they have to do these tests to just make sure, like, check the baby's like limbs and eyes and all of that. I had no idea about that. So once I gave birth and I heard her cry, I felt really relieved. I was like, it's over, she's here, everything's gone really well. Then, you know, she was taken away from me and they told me about these checks. They were like, oh, you know, we're going to come back and do these. And I just remember it inducing all this anxiety in me. Like, oh my God, like, what if something's like, you know, what if she's not okay? So I remember feeling really emotional about that. But again, that could have just been hormones because I'd just given birth. But I remember feeling like really anxious and stressed out about that. Yeah.
During your pregnancy, did you have any of those anxieties, or when you were getting ready for the baby, was there anything that your partner just couldn't understand why you were acting like that emotionally?
Yeah, pretty much everything. I was like, towards the end, I mean, I was spoken about it, but my pregnancy was really awful. Quickly going back to the HG, there was one time that I threw up so badly that I burst the blood vessels in my eyes. And like with my eyes, and I had no idea because I was just puking non-stop, and then my eyeballs were red, and my husband was like, I literally look like Michael Jackson out of Thriller, like, you know, like when he does the spin, like that's what I look like. And so that was awful. And like another thing for me was like body image. And I really didn't think I'd be that person because I was when I got pregnant, I really wanted to be a mum. I felt really ready, and our daughter was very planned. So I just thought I would be so grateful to be a mum that all of that stuff would go out the window. I wouldn't care about what I look like. All I'm going to do is focus on this pregnancy and focus on this life that I'm growing, and that's the number one thing. But you don't lose who you are when you become pregnant. You're still you, and I like to look good. I like to feel good, like it's part of who I am. And it didn't go out the window, and so that did really impact me. And I remember early stages, I would have been it was between 8 to 12 weeks, and it's when you're not quite showing, but you know you're pregnant. And I remember I was going out and nothing fit, and I just remember bursting into tears. And it was twofold, because one, I was crying because I literally couldn't fit the stuff, and two, I was embarrassed that I was crying because I couldn't fit the stuff. You know, I just felt so ridiculous. I was like, why are you crying about this? Like toughen up, like you're better than this. But yeah, it was such a roller coaster of emotions over the smallest things to the biggest things. Yeah.
It is nuts, because I was the same as you. Like, I wanted to be a mum. We were actively trying. And then when it does happen, you think to yourself, I'm going to be so excited about this. I'm going to enjoy this journey. And it's so beautiful. I can't believe my body is doing this and carrying. So then you feel a little bit guilty, that you feel almost vain, that your body's changing. But where, like, your style, like, I feel like your style is like your identity. That's like the first thing that the world sees of you. That's like how you communicate who you are. It is such a mindfuck, for lack of a better word, when your body is changing and going through that. And yeah, it's tough having that guilt. You want to be like, you know what, no, that's amazing that my body's doing this, but also that's so normal to not fully enjoy it. I would probably say that was my least favourite part of pregnancy, was my body changing, struggling how to dress, just not feeling myself anymore. Did you experience any nesting?
Oh my God, I was like a nestzilla. I was awful. I was so bad. Like, I actually owe my husband a massive apology for the way I acted. I was so desperate to nest and have her room ready to go, so that when we came home from the hospital, everything was organised. And her room essentially was like a dumping ground for just junk. So it was just a hot mess. And I'd say to my husband, like, we need to get rid of everything. We need to build her cot. We need to do all this stuff. And I remember I had all these gifts for my baby shower, and everything was in the front room. And we live in, you know, a small flat, so every bit of space matters. And so all the gifts and all her stuff were in the front room, and I just wanted to get the room going, to the point where he'd be like, listen, I will sort it out. To the point where one day I remember I just called like rubbish people, like people that come and collect like trash basically, and I just paid, and I was like, guys, come and just get rid of everything. I had no patience when I was pregnant.
It's like this immediate, I feel like with nesting, it comes over you all of a sudden. It's this immediate thing, and it's like everything needs done absolutely
needs to be
right
perfect.
now. But that is actually like a science-backed thing. It comes in at a certain week. I can't remember what the weeks are, Lily, but it does kick in that third trimester. And it is when you're coming to the end of the pregnancy, and it is your body being like, right, okay, get ready, the baby's coming.
It's a psychological, natural, physiological feeling that you've got to protect and create a safe space for your baby. It tends to come in around trimester 3, so like 28 weeks or so. I do think it comes from comparison we see online. Our bestie's done her baby bag and I haven't done my baby bag, and all of those things make you start to panic. I think as well, we've got control over what we can do our nursery like. I mean, also side note, they don't sleep in their nursery for the first 6 months, so it's useless. But it is important to be, you know, checking in with, am I doing this because I need to, or am I doing this because I've got pressure from social media, friends? It's very natural, and the more you fight it, the more you start scrubbing your windows at 1 a.m, cleaning out your fridge at 2. Like, it's
I was
ridiculous.
cleaning my cooker. First of all, I hardly cook anyway, so like the cooker didn't really need cleaned. And then second of all, I was like, what? So I'm going to bring my baby home and be like, baby, do you like the clean cooker? As if that matters. But yeah, people don't really get it unless you're in it. And like your husband was probably like, what is this like immediacy? Like, why are you feeling this needs done right now? But the dynamics do kind of change when the baby does come. Do you feel with the arrival of Anaya that the dynamic changed with you and your husband?
Yeah, a little bit. Like I had no experience with children. I'm the eldest of 3. You know, me and my siblings are pretty close in age, so I'd never really grew up around children. A lot of my friends had babies later. So I had a few friends that did it early and their kids are grown now. So I never really had that experience with kids. Whereas my husband, he's got a lot of nieces and nephews. He grew up like babysitting and looking after children. And so we would bump heads over how we did things, you know? And so sometimes he would want to do, you know, maybe a more old school way of doing things. And I would want to do things in a more modern way. I've watched this, I saw this TikTok, I've listened to this, I've listened to that podcast. And so we would clash a lot over that, you know, how we're raising her sometimes, or, you know, just me being just really pushy. Like I was a nightmare. Like I definitely was a nestzilla. Like I was probably quite difficult to live with. And I mean I can look back now and take that accountability, but at the time I felt like I was doing what was best, but it 100% had an impact on our relationship. But the good thing about my husband, he's a great communicator, so we would always find a way to, you know, find some resolution so that we could be, you know, in a good headspace for Anaya.
I think that is just the most important thing, is just communicating, having those hard conversations beforehand, so that when the baby does come, there's not any surprises or shocks, you know, like you said, you knew what your husband was like he was more old school, you were more new school, but as long as you were communicating, then that would kind of help. I just remember point scoring with my husband Andy. I would just be like, right, okay, well, I've did XYZ here, so like, why have you not did this? And even now that the baby's here, I find us like asking permission to be like, right, I'm going to shower at this time, so that means you need to shower at this time. But Lily, it's so normal for dynamics to change when a baby comes on. It's such a big life change.
Yeah, I mean, I think they say, don't they, getting married, moving house and having a baby are the biggest stressors. Like such a lucky privileged stress that we can go through, and some people are crazy enough to do all of them at the same time, so it's a lot. I do think with relationships, they're going to change, and chatting before the baby's born and having your tense words, your potential raised voices, you know, you're working it out and hashing it out together before your little baby comes into the world. We talked about sex changing, your body image changes, your priorities shift. Of course, your relationship is going to be different, but hopefully you grow together, and then you have another and another and another.
And you're like, oh my God, why are we doing this? But every journey is just so different. Every baby's so different. It's really not like the movies. Like when I had Winnie, we had a water birth, and when she came out, her cord snapped, so we weren't attached, and it was quite stressful, and it wasn't quite what I'd imagined in my head for like that first meeting of Winnie. It was just kind of like she was whisked away, and I was thinking, oh my goodness, like what's happening? When you first met Anaya, did you have like that experience that you imagined in your head, or was it completely different?
Do you know what's so funny? I did have the experience that I imagined in my head. Like I feel so lucky and privileged to have had that immediate wave of love and the bonding straight away. However, I was very paranoid that I wasn't, because we have so much information now about postpartum. So I was hyper aware about postpartum, but I think it's actually a good thing, because I felt really well equipped, and like I had the tools that in case that didn't happen, I also knew that it was normal. So that's why I love platforms like this, and like women sharing their experiences and their stories, because it just means that when you do go on to have these experiences, you can be well equipped. And had I not had stories of people sharing their, you know, postpartum experiences, like postpartum depression experiences, I wouldn't even have known that was a thing. So I was hyper aware that it could be a thing. It was it could have been a possibility, but luckily it wasn't. You know, she came out, they put her in my arms, and I felt that immediately. I felt very connected to her. I felt ready to mother. I was like, I want to breastfeed. My mum was like, calm down. You only have colostrum right now. There's like chill, you know? So again, it's, you know, very lucky, very privileged. I know that's not everyone's experience, but it was good to be armed with that information.
I think it is so important what you said there, that instant connection doesn't come for everyone. That's beautiful that was your experience. But Lily, that is very common, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. And like we were saying before with the guilt, sometimes we're so wrapped up in guilt that we can't actually just enjoy how we're feeling. I don't think I would be preparing to meet the love of my life where I've not slept, my vagina's in bits, I'm in pain, I'm struggling to think straight, and then I'm going to go and fall in love with somebody. I just don't feel like for me that will happen. And that's no shade on our little babies to kind of think, oh, my mum didn't love me. Of course they did, but you just don't feel that overwhelming urge. They are a complete stranger. And often people will say, I'll say, have you picked a name? And they say, I just want to see what he looks like, because sometimes they shock you. And as a midwife, of course, all babies are beautiful when they're born, but they change. And sometimes, have you seen that meme where it's like, they just defrost, they just need to thaw out a little bit, like that, and then they pick up their name, and then your love grows. But like with anything, I don't think expecting love immediately is the most sensible thing to do, because like when it happens, it's amazing, and then if it didn't, just to bear with, that is going to happen as you nurture. And probably what you're lacking is confidence in yourself.
Yeah, just give yourself some grace. You've just went through a massive life change. So if the instant connection isn't there, you're not alone. It is common. And don't bottle it up. Just speak to people. I think that's also a lot of time, if you've got any fellow mum friends or parent friends, there's probably more often than not they've went through that as well. Just reaching out. Going on from don't bottle it up, we actually do have a segment in the show where we welcome our guests into our confessional booth. I've got any funny stories that you want to confess to with Anaya's life? Is there anything that you look back and you think, oh, why did I do that? But it's quite funny now.
Oh my God. Okay, so there's a couple, like, it got to a point where this is actually so genuine. Before I got my Tommee Tippee baby bottle maker, and I was making bottles the old school way, I was obviously always like making sure,
back of the hand,
of the hand, milk's not too hot. I started doing that with my own drinks. Like, that's how delusional I was. Like, I was literally having like teas and coffees and being like, oh no, this is for me. Like, I'm a grown woman. I don't need to do this for myself. It's actually fine. So that was until I got my milk maker, which is an absolute godsend. But also just the first time she fell off the couch. Oh my God. I can look back now and laugh, but at the time it was the worst thing. And I remember my husband was out, and it was the first time, no, probably not the first time, but she was maybe 6 or 7 months. And when they're just about to start rolling and doing all of that. But I didn't think she could roll yet. So, God forbid a girl goes to make a cup of tea. Absolutely. And I'm in the kitchen, and then just suddenly, and it was our couch is very low, and she was like nested in what I thought was the corner of the couch. And then suddenly I just heard a thump, and I was like, oh my God. And I remember being so stressed. I called my husband crying. I was so distraught. And then he was just laughing, and he was like, babe, it's okay.
She'll be fine.
He was like, she'll be fine. She cried for about 30 seconds. It was probably more the shock than anything. And I just remember being like, we need to go to A&E. And he was like, you don't need to go to A&E. Like, she's fine. Like, you're going to be fine. Yeah. It's funny. And I remember he did something that was so sweet, because he was out with his friends. And then he was like, boys, how many of you have dropped your babies off the couch? And they were all like, yeah. In the background. I'm like, yeah. And I just felt so, I don't know, I just felt really just comforted and just seen. And I just didn't feel like the world's worst mum. But I can look back at that story now and laugh.
We've all done things that we can hopefully look back on and laugh. And of course, if you're ever concerned, take your baby to get checked over. I think there's probably a stigma of seeking help for an accident that's happened when the baby was in your care, and then you think you're going to be judged. But that's not what people are there for. They're just there to support you.
Audrey, we're at our quick fire round now. This is no time to think. One word answers if you can. If you can't think of anything, just pass.
Okay, cool.
What's one product that you can't live without?
Oh my God, that's easy. The Tommee Tippee Perfect Prep Machine. Yeah. Oh my God, it was such a lifesaver. The best thing ever.
What's one hack that saved your sanity in those early weeks?
Oh, a swaddle. What's
one thing you wish someone told you before becoming a mum?
Oh, they weren't joking about the sleep thing. I used to think people were exaggerating. They were not.
No, they weren't. It's a shame. What's your nickname for Anaya? Have you got any cute nicknames?
I would call her Ninny.
Oh, cute. Yeah. Did you have any cravings, or was it just...
Yeah, I did actually. Tuna mayonnaise and cucumber sandwiches.
Oh, that's my favourite right now. What snack could you not live without?
Tuna mayonnaise and cucumber sandwiches.
Perfect. And what song or nursery rhyme drives you absolutely nuts?
The Wheels on the Bus. I'm so sorry. It's a classic, but it's so annoying now.
And now it's stuck in my head, Audrey. Thanks very much. So we've spoke all about pregnancy and all the things that they don't tell you about through that. But then the baby comes, and that's just a whole different ball game. What caught you off guard when Anaya arrived?
I didn't know that latching, because I breastfed, I mixed fed from the minute she was born. I didn't know that they didn't latch on straight away. Like my mum had to physically help me, like put my breast in her mouth and angle her at a certain position. I had no idea about that. I thought they came out knowing what to do. You just hold them, like they do in the movies, you hold them and they just latch and it was fine. I had no idea that it was more of a bit of a sport than what you know, than what I'd anticipated. And it took me a good few weeks to be able to do it on my own.
Something that threw me so off was how long Winnie's nails were.
Yeah.
And she had really long fingernails, but she didn't have any toenails. And I was like, when are your toenails going to go in, babe? Like, your toes look weird. Yeah. But I think nothing really, truly prepares you for the poos and the nappy situations.
Yes.
That very first nappy, that was a ride, which when it comes out and it's like the meconium and it's like really dark.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Have you experienced like some punamis in your time?
Oh my God, so many. So we had punamis and then we had a constipation problem. So then I was wishing for the punamis.
Yeah,
and I wish I appreciated the punamis more when they were there.
Yeah.
Because when I was dealing with the constipation, it was awful. But I've got a friend and our kids are, you know, they're only a year apart, and she loves the smell of like newborn poo.
What?
No, it's I actually said this before. I don't know if I like the smell of other babies' poos, but like my baby's poo smells like roses. I don't know about your baby, but mine's like, but I actually do. I think it's not that it's endearing, but I'm just like, I'm so proud of you.
Yeah.
And I went through the constipation thing with
Oh my
Winnie as well,
God.
and they're in so much discomfort that you do wish that you had that back. And in those early days, it does feel a lot just like maybe baby, maybe this is what's wrong with them, maybe that's what's wrong with them, and you wish for those times back.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And yeah, they don't tell you that. One of the other things that really threw me off, because Winnie's a wee girl, is wee girls have a mini period.
Yeah.
I don't know if you...
I heard about that.
Yeah.
I heard about that, yeah.
Can you expand a little bit on that, Lily? Like what to expect if you have a wee girl?
Yeah.
They have a little mini period.
Yeah, so some people call it a pseudo period. It's like a bleed from the uterus. Girls obviously have it, and sometimes you don't even notice because it'll come out mixed in lots of poo, or you've wiped her very quickly, and it lasts for a couple of days, no more than a week or so usually, and it's due to the hormones. She's attached to you, she's had an influx of all your hormones, and then she's been cut from the cord, and now her hormones are draining. So it's very normal. They're not supposed to be in pain or have like the mood swings that we can have. It just comes and goes. But worth knowing, because I think if your baby was bleeding, and you didn't know about that, you would be panicking. Yeah. So yeah, that's something that's very common, very normal.
Yep, so notable that it's normal. And we've spoke a lot about what they don't tell us. Why does that catch us by surprise so much, Lily? It is normal to not know it all, right?
Absolutely. I think my friends call me Queen Normal, because I feel like I say every day, that's normal, babe, that's normal, babe. And they're like, just tell me it's not normal. And it's never to undermine anybody. But if I can tell you that that's fine and that's normal, I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's still, you know, sometimes really, really tricky. But I think we don't hang on to the positives. Yeah. I think when we share our birth stories, we talk about the most horrific thing that happened, rightly so, because it's damn tough. But I don't personally remember all of the pleasant bits in life, but I definitely remember all the bad stuff. So I think we skim over that's normal, that's part of it, and focus on what happens if I get HG, what happens if my baby can't breastfeed, what happens, you know, and we would just worry ourselves to sleep with that. So it's just remembering for everybody, guys, that a lot of birth is normal, a lot of your feelings are very normal, and if you want proof of that, just fact check that with your midwife. Just ask them, is that okay? Am I feeling like this?
And it's nice to feel like seen and heard, and you're not alone in this, and you've got all these question marks over your head, but you don't have a handbook, and so asking your midwife, it's actually nice to hear, that's normal, don't worry about that.
Exactly.
But always, if you've ever got any questions, just ask.
Yeah,
that's the best tip
I could sometimes hopefully reassure someone in like 5 seconds, and I know they've been dwelling on that for 5 weeks, and I think that's so normal for me as a midwife, but it's not for you. And so there is never daft questions. You don't have to start off your question with, this might be so stupid, but because it's a judgment-free zone. The stupid questions are the ones you don't ask.
There's no stupid questions. We have a segment in the show called Group Chat Approved, where we discuss a parenting hack, and it's great for our listeners because if they're pregnant right now, they need some good hacks.
Yeah, get us in your group chat.
I think one of the best hacks that I found was swaddling, and all the different ways that you can swaddle. And Lily, you could probably touch on all the different ways that you can swaddle a baby. Yeah,
there are blankets you can use. You can use something as simple as a really large muslin cloth. You can use the zip bags or the grow bags. I know Tommee Tippee have the grow bags that have got different togs depending on which weather we're suffering from or enjoying. So yeah, your baby can like some, hate others, and you've just got to do a bit of trial and error.
When Winnie was first born, we were swaddling her in a wee cellular blanket, which is the blanket that's got like the little holes in them. But then when she grew a wee bit bigger, she had like the startle reflex. So then we had her in the swaddle with her wee hands up. But now she's rolling, so she can't be in that. So there's loads of different ways to swaddle. I think it can be a wee bit of a minefield. Lily, can you touch on like why we do swaddle? Why do babies like to be in that little like tight cocoon?
It's safety, it's security, and he or she is like that in mum's tum for however long. When we swaddle babies, it's usually for comfort. The startle reflex, that what Winnie was doing, that is really normal, and they can wake themselves up doing that.
Winnie wakes herself up and I think, babe, it is 3 a.m, go back to sleep right now. That transition from the swaddle with the hands up to what we're going through just now with the swaddle with her hands out, oh my goodness,
it's
tough.
hard. Just making sure your blankets can't cover her face, her nose, her lips, and that things are tightly wrapped, because babies do want to feel like you can, while they're being held, and we can't do that all the time.
Something that threw me off as well, because Winnie's a summer baby, and so when I had like the little Tommee Tippee thermometer egg in the room, I would tell you it's so good, right? Because it lights up and it changes colour, so you know perfect, if it's like change the temperatures. And so with her swaddles, I didn't know that you could get different togs, which is basically the thickness of the swaddle. And it's the same with sleeping bags as well. You can get like a 0.5 tog, which is really light, and that's probably what you would use in summer. But then coming into winter, you can get different weights as well.
Yeah, like duvets. Like, I don't know, my mum always used to say, get your winter duvet out and add this extra little bit on. And it is the same. A baby blanket, like a cellular, you know, with the holes in, that is not the same as your duvet. So if you are sleeping with pyjamas, duvet, sometimes we've got socks on, whatever we're comfy in, and then you look at your little one who's literally just in a blanket, that is not the equivalent. They need to be in one more layer than us. So just because we feel hot does not mean a baby like this just lying there is hot, because they're not moving, they're not shivering, they're not sweating. We do need to be really careful that we're not freezing them or cooking them.
And it can feel quite overwhelming, the whole swaddling, because there's so many different ones. But Tommee Tippee actually does have this little bag that's like this wee like built-in one, so it's dead easy. So don't be overwhelmed by it. But there's loads of tips on TikTok. I mean, I always say I've literally raised Winnie on TikTok. I don't know how my mum and dad got me at this point, because they must have been reading books, and I'm like raising my child on TikTok.
There's so many helpful things on there. But swaddling, like burrito style swaddling, there is a knack to it, and once you crack it, you'll be able to do it with your eyes closed.
I was actually completely against swaddling before I knew anything about it, and that was me just being ignorant and having no information. But it's only because I used to see these videos online of babies like looking really restricted, like they're in straitjackets. So I used to be like, why is the baby in a straitjacket? That looks so uncomfortable. Like, why would you do that? Until I had my own, and it was insane, because when we brought Anaya home, she just would not settle, and she was very startly. She had the shakes. So my mum was like, why don't you try swaddling her and see if that works? And I'd gotten a swaddle as a gift, and so we did it, and it worked, and it was the only thing that settled her. And I was like, oh my god, I can't believe I have to swaddle my baby after all of the crap I've been talking about it. But yeah, it worked. It was the only thing that settled her. She just felt warm and secure, and like you were saying, she felt like she was in my arms, and it just massively helped. And yeah, the 180 I had to do on that, you know, I don't mind taking accountability. I got it wrong. I got it wrong. It was fine.
Yeah. And it makes so much sense. Their whole world, like a lot of the times as parents, you think like this is so difficult and the baby's not sleeping and things, but the baby's going through it as well. Like, see if you've been in a nice warm tummy and you've been all cozy, and then you come out and it's freezing, and like there's this person that's trying to tell you go to sleep when you don't want to go to sleep. So giving them wee tools like a swaddle to help them self-soothe probably does actually end up helping the parents as well. It gives us more sleep.
Yeah, you can do.
They're so noisy in those early days, and it's like the breathing is so loud, but it's to do with like breathing like can I say that word? Baby brain. Irregularities. Yeah, thanks, Lily.
So I think if you stare at anything for too long, you start to get paranoid about breathing and rates. And newborns breathe way faster than us. So roughly a newborn baby, their respiration rate, how many breaths they take per minute, is like 40 to 60. Whereas for us, it's like 12 to 20. So massive differences. But yeah, babies do breathe super fast, and it can make you panic. So just a little gentle prod is fine to just double check you've still got your startles and you're still fine.
Did you have any experiences with that with Anaya?
Yes, all the time. It was either she was breathing too fast and hard or not breathing at all.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like that paranoia that you get, you suddenly wake up like, oh my God, are they breathing? Like I haven't heard them. And so, you know, you do the little finger thing where you put it under their nose to like just make sure that they're breathing.
Is like so gentle. So then you're like,
exactly.
wait, there's no breath.
I'm like, sorry, I have to shake her a little bit. Sorry.
Just
I
a
need to
little
make sure
gentle
that she,
tickle.
just make sure she responds. So it was both sides of the coin. Like, you know, is she breathing too hard and panting too much, or is she not breathing at all? Like, I just feel like I was consistently paranoid. But I do have a question actually for you. Is it true that they're not supposed to breathe out of their mouths?
Well, then they can. Their little nostrils are so tiny, and then if they've got great big bogies as well, often they will have to breathe out their mouths. But when they sleep, often babies will sleep with the mouth closed, and so the noises is from congestion a lot of the time. C-section babies are often very mucousy, so they've got a lot of fluid that they've not expelled out. Whereas vaginal birth babies, they get squished, so it all leaks out. There's little suction snot thingies that you can get to put up their
So
nose.
satisfying. Tommee Tippee has one. It's like a nasal aspirator.
Yeah.
That's something that you think before babies, and then it's so satisfying, especially if it helps you get a good sleep during the night.
That thing.
Making sure the babies go down decongested will help with the baby grunts.
Absolutely. And you might have noticed when you are sleeping and your baby's settled, the slightest little noise, you're just like wake straight up. And that's a natural reflex that you've got to keep your baby alive and well. So not a lot can happen with your baby by your side, in the same room as you. A sneeze, a cough, a startle, you'll hear it, I promise.
So just coming to the end of our conversation, thinking back on parenthood, of all the things that they didn't tell you about, what's like one that really shocked you?
Do you know what? I really will die on the hill of constipation. I really, really will. Only because it was such a battle in our household, and it was something that was on and off for, I think Anaya was probably 6 weeks, and she didn't go for, I remember it was like 13 days. And I remember just being so stressed and taking her to A&E and just being really stressed out about it. And I just had no idea, because you hear so often about the punamis. So that's what I was expecting. I didn't anticipate that she wouldn't be able to go, that we'd have issues with like colic, and it would potentially affect, you know, her bowel movements and stuff like that. So that was a very, very stressful time for us. Yeah.
And that, Lily, is quite common as well, because their wee digestive systems are so immature that they're still developing. So constipation is just, they're just learning how to push, and that is really normal. But you did the right thing, Audrey, take her A&E, still asking your healthcare providers, like
13 days, that's a long time. I mean, when you said constipation, I thought you meant you, babe. So.
Well, me too. Yeah, we both suffered from it.
We both are like mother, like daughter.
Exactly.
But yeah, constipation is so cruel. It feels so awful to watch your little one go through that. Changing your milk, switching up your feeding regime, feeding longer, shorter. The winter, the summer, your milk changes. Often it can be very normal. But I would say after a couple of days, be accessing some support of just checking in, is that normal or not?
And last thing, Audrey, from your parent journey with Anaya, is there just one moment that you could bottle up?
Oh, do you know what? I wish I took more advantage of the newborn phase. You know, I just was so hyper fixated on trying to get everything right. And I'm a very organised person. I've got like a type A personality by nature. And I feel like I spent a lot of time trying to implement that into the early days of motherhood. And so, you know, one thing people always say to you is it goes really fast. And again, another thing, I used to think people are exaggerating, but they did not lie. It all goes so fast. So I wish I just enjoyed those sort of like newborn months a little bit more, and just took advantage of the fact that they do sleep for many hours a day. And I remember I used to be like bored. I used to be like, why are you sleeping so much? Like, wake up and play with me. Like, and my mum would be like, leave her, go and sleep. And I wish like I took advantage of that. But just when she was a newborn and just very much attached to me, and I breastfed until she was 1, and I really miss it.
Incredible, well done. That's absolutely well done. That's an incredible journey. It's such a beautiful bonding to breastfeed. But I do think that's so normal in the newborn stages. Like, I feel as if I'm still kind of in it. Like, I'm kind of coming a little bit out of it, but it feels like survival in those early days. And I feel as if now I'm just getting to the stage where I'm like enjoying the baby, because in those first few weeks I just felt like I need to keep this wee girl alive. Exactly. Like, I'm fully responsible for her, but taking advantage of the fact that they sleep like 16 hours a day because Winnie's in a sleep regression and we're not doing that anymore. And I miss that. Well, guys, thank you so much. That was such a good chat. I feel so seen, so heard. That was like a therapy session.
Honestly, same. We were like, especially over the Phil Mitchell thing, I'm not over it.
I know, well done, Phil. If you're listening, we're so happy for you.
Good job.
And Midwife Lily, thank you so much for coming in with all the medical point of views. For any of our listeners, where can they find you?
All socials, it's at From Bumps to Babies.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Parents, You've Got This and We've Got You. You can find Tommee Tippee on socials. The links are in the description below. And very exciting to say, exclusively for podcast listeners, Tommee Tippee are giving us 15% off on TommeeTippee.com. At checkout, use code You've Got This 15 to get some money off brilliant products. I use them every single day. And on the website, there's a lot of new advice for parents. You've got this and we've got you. Join us next week when we will be talking to writer Raven Smith on his journey to parenthood through surrogacy, those early newborn days and how there's no such thing as normal. See you then.